Hey guys, it's Jessica, and I'm going to do a little Bible lesson for the older teens tonight. This is my first time doing an online Bible study, so you have to bear with me as I figure it out. But the topic that I wanted to talk to you guys about this week is something that I'm sure everybody can identify with right now, especially in the times that we're in now. So tonight's lesson is titled Handling Stress, which is something that I'm sure not only the teenagers could benefit from, but I'm sure everybody could benefit from right now. I know I can as well. So to just start off, we will jump right into it. So stress seems to be a fact of life for most of us, for most people, but especially for teenagers. I feel like the amount of pressure and stress that teens have to deal with is beyond what anybody could ever imagine. I think that what they deal with every day can go very unnoticed, or it can be categorized as maybe not real problems or childish, or just chalked it up to growing pains or whatnot. But let's talk about a few things that teens deal with on a daily basis. Just to name a few, we've got never-ending homework. I'm sure that all you guys can identify with that. We've got extracurricular activities. We've got jobs that some teenagers have, or chores that they have around the house. Drama within friendships. It's a very real thing for teenagers. We've got problems in home life, whether it could be issues with siblings or it could be your parents being separated or divorced. And then there's also the constant pressure, especially for a lot of student athletes, to excel in the athletics or in academics. There's a lot of pressure from coaches and parents and whatever else may be pressuring them, colleges or scouts or whatever it may be. There's a lot of pressure to live up to that expectation. And I also feel that one of the biggest stresses that teenagers have that maybe we try to avoid talking about is the stress that we put on our kids. I feel like a lot of times that we put a lot of stress or a lot of expectations on our kids without even knowing it, without even knowing that we're doing it. I feel like we put a lot of expectations on them. If we're continuing to tell our kid, you're so perfect, you're so great, you're an angel, you're this, you're that, I feel like that puts a lot of added stress and pressure of expectation on kids that we don't even realize that we're doing. So, all those things together, even as an adult, that would be a lot to deal with on a daily basis. And teenagers deal with these things, maybe not all of these things in everyday life, but maybe a lot of these things in everyday life. Maybe not every day, but a lot of the time. These kids are dealing with these things. And still are expected to just be, a beacon of good behavior and excellence and perfection. And we don't expect adults to do that. We don't. We allow adults to make mistakes, and, we're forgiven for those mistakes. But it seems like a lot of the times that, when kids make mistakes or when teenagers make mistakes, it almost seems as if, they're held to some higher standard, that they should be punished for making mistakes. Could you imagine if we got punished as an adult every time that we made a mistake? I don't want to begin to think how many punishments I'd receive if that was the case. But as a teenager, I feel as if they lack the maturity or the life experience that it requires to be able to deal with a lot of these issues. Stress can make life seem very, very overwhelming at times. It can even have harmful side effects to your health. It can be physical, it can be mental, there can be emotional side effects to it. There's a lot of things that can cause, that stress can cause to your body and to your mind. So it's very serious when we talk about stress. So let's see what God says about handling stress in our lives. So a couple of scriptures that we're going to go over today. It's going to be a short lesson, like I said, nothing too lengthy. Just a few things that I found. I won't read every verse that I found. I'll give you those, and if you want to look those up yourself, you can. I'll give you the gist of what they mean. So the first excerpt that I have is from Exodus chapter 18, verses 17 through 23. This is advice from Moses' father-in-law to Moses. It says in verse 17, what you're doing isn't good. You and these people who are with you. I'm sorry, let me go back. What you're doing isn't good. You will end up totally wearing yourself out, both you and these people who are with you. The work is too difficult for you. You can't do it alone. In verse 22, it says, this will be much easier for you if you will share your load. And kind of the gist of what this group of verses is saying is that you need to ask for help. You don't have to carry your burdens alone. And that's something that's has so much meaning to it. I mean, we have to know that in this life that we're not walking through anything alone. We are actually being carried most of the time by Jesus himself. And we don't have to go through this life carrying all these heavy burdens on our shoulders, feeling all this stress, feeling this overwhelmingness on us all the time. Again, even as adults, we carry so much burdens around with us, especially, from our family. As mothers, we carry a huge amount of burdens around on us, burdens of our children, that, we don't want them to mess up in life. We don't want them to choose the wrong path. We want them to have a good career. We want them to have a good relationship with Jesus, a good relationship with other people. There's so many things that we want for our children. And we carry those burdens around with us, and we don't have to. We can lay those burdens down at Jesus' feet, and he says to ask for help. When Moses' father-in-law gave him his advice was to ask for help. And that's sometimes what we have to do. We have to ask for help. And Jesus is always willing and able to help. Another verse that I found is in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 1 through 4. And I kind of titled this one, Rules for Warfare. And it says, in verse 3, it says, don't be discouraged. Don't be afraid. Don't panic. And don't shake in fear on account of fear, because the Lord your God is going with you to fight your enemies for you and to save you. And that's why I call that the rules of warfare. Because it really is. I mean, life is a war every day. I mean, it really is. There's so much coming at us every single day. And as adults, it's hard to deal with, but I can't imagine what it would be being a teenager and not having all the life experiences and maybe maturity that you need to be able to deal with these things that are coming at you every day. And we don't have to. We don't have to deal with them by ourselves. That's the good news. That's the great news, is that we don't have to deal with these things by ourselves. We don't have to be afraid. We definitely don't need to be discouraged. We certainly don't need to panic. I'm one to panic, I will tell you that. When it comes to a difficult situation, I, for one, do have a tendency sometimes to panic. And that's something that I'm working on, is trying not to panic, to try and trust God with whatever may lie ahead, whatever that may be. We don't need to stress. We don't need to worry. We need to not be afraid. We need to not panic, and we need to ask for help. Those are a couple of the main points of this lesson. Another one is Psalms, and it's chapter 18, verse 6. In my distress, I cried out to the Lord. I called to my God for help. God heard my voice from his temple. I called to him for help, and my call reached his ears. And that is basically telling you that when you call upon the Lord, he's going to hear you, and he's going to help you. And it says, recognize the Lord gives victory and relief. And he does that. The Lord will give us victory. The Lord will give us relief from the things that burden us. We need to make sure that we take all of our burdens to the Lord in prayer, regardless of what they may be, how big or small that they may be to you. Just know that in the Lord's eyes, if it's important to you, it's important to him as well. So take any and all burdens to the Lord in prayer. The last verse is Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. So be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. Take advantage of every opportunity, because these are evil times. And this is seek the Lord's will in using time wisely. And I mean, not only do we need to seek the Lord's will in everything that we do, but it is very smart to ask the Lord to help you to seek His will and using your time wisely. We don't want idle time on our hands. Everybody needs a break, of course. But idle time can bring a lot of evil things into your life when you don't have anything to do. I mean, God definitely wants us to be productive people. So here are some of the ideas that I came up with to help with dealing with stress. Okay. He says being busy isn't a bad thing, for God wants us to be productive and He wants us to get things done. But God doesn't want us to be overwhelmed with stress to the point of being miserable. God doesn't want that for us. So after the verses that we just read, we're going to consider a couple of things. The first one being, are you willing to share your burdens? And those burdens can be shared with, obviously, God through prayer, or your burdens can also be shared with a friend or a parent or a youth leader or anyone that you trust. It's super helpful to open up to somebody that you trust about the burdens that you carry and to have that person to pray with you over the burdens that you carry. Opening up and praying with someone goes a long way in relieving stress. A long way. It's great to have somebody to confide in. I know that we all talk to Jesus and we tell Him our problems, and that's great. That's what we need to do. But it also is good to have somebody to speak to that can speak back to you as well, that can comfort you and that can support you. And it's good to find somebody in your life that can be that person for you. Secondly, what adjustments do you need to make in your life? Consider what schedule changes or relationship changes, friendship changes can you make in your life to free up unneeded stress. That's something that a lot of us probably have a really hard time with. There are unneeded stresses in our lives, things that don't need to happen, situations that never should have been. There are people in our lives right now that don't need to be in our lives because they cause unnecessary stress. I mean, if they're not bringing you closer to the Lord, then they're pushing you farther away. And that's what I've always heard. So we definitely need to reconsider. We need to take inventory of the people and the things and the time spent that we have in our life, what we do with our time, the people that we spend it with, and really evaluate the things that cause you stress in your life. If there's a person in your life that is continuously causing stress, if that friendship is too, strenuous and hard, then that's something that you need to consider alleviating from your life. And definitely don't put too much on yourself. You want to make sure that, even though that God does appreciate us getting things done and being busy, we also have to make sure that we are not putting too much on ourselves. God doesn't expect everything from us. He never has. But we often expect a lot from ourselves, a lot more. And we have to understand that we have limitations too. God knows that we have limitations as human beings and that we can't do everything, and He doesn't expect us to. So don't put too much on yourself. Know your limits. Know what you can handle and what you can't handle. And then the third thing is God calls us to work hard and to study hard. But He also calls us to give the pressure of success over to Him. That's one thing that I thought was super important to me when I was reading through this lesson. I just thought that was really great to hear that, we can work hard, we can study hard, we can be the best that we can be in school and in athletics and whatever the case may be. But those things are still only going to take you so far. And then comes Jesus. So just know that when it comes to the pressure of success, we can turn that burden over to Him. As long as we put the work in that we need to, trying your best and doing the best that you can, you take that burden of success that you feel that you have to be perfect or you have to be the best, and you turn that over to God. And you allow Him to be the success story for you. You have to do your part, and then you just turn the rest over to God. And let Him handle what you can't, because He can and will handle it for you. Handling stress correctly is critical if we desire to be used by God. That's something that's very important. We can't be stressed out and worried and freaking out all the time if we want God to use us, if we want God's will to be priority in our life, then we can't allow stress to overcome and overwhelm everything that we do in our everyday lives. It's essential for us to turn our stress over to Him. So I pray for all of my teens and for anybody who's watching this. I pray a prayer of relinquishing whatever stress that you may have in your life, to turn that burden over to God and allow Him to take that from you. His shoulders are much more broad than ours are, and He can carry so much more than we can. So I ask all of you guys today, if you can, just to take inventory of your life, reevaluate the things in your life that are important, the things that cause you too much stress, and the things that bring you joy, the people who bring you closer to God and the people who push you farther away. So when you see things that are stressing you out in your life, make sure that you turn whatever that burden is or that worry is, turn that over to God and allow Him to handle that for you. Because in this life, we don't have to handle anything on our own. We always have Jesus right beside us. They are ready to take on whatever it is that we can't handle. So, and that's all I have. That's my lesson. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you soon. Bye.